All right, so welcome to Chanukah Yomiyun, and we're going to be looking at different reality. And for those of you who haven't been in my class before, we always look from a perspective of logotherapy, how to find meaning in the Chag. Welcome. And so we're going to be going through source sheets, and we're going to go through different ideas about how to find different meaning to attach to Chanukah, because we've all been doing Chanukah as all the other Chagim. We've been doing them for years and years, and maybe this year we can see things a little bit differently. So the first idea I'm going to be bringing is from Charlie Harari, and he's a great speaker. He lives in New York. I see you smiling. You obviously have heard him before, and a very dynamic speaker. I think he's a lawyer, and he's a very dynamic speaker. So he says it all started off, the Chanukah story, actually way before, with Alexander the Great. And I'll tell you when to look into your notes. Before he was age 30, he had already conquered almost half the world, okay? And his teacher was Aristotle, okay? Now, Aristotle, up until that time, when he started learning with Aristotle, everyone believed in God, whether the God was the sun or the moon or there was God, but everyone at that time in the world believed in God. Along came Aristotle and he said, no, actually, man is the center of the universe. Man is this great force, this great being, and we have to look at man and our abilities, and that's how we have to get strong. So this is what he taught. And Alexander the Great then moved around all these places he'd conquered and started spreading this idea that it's not God, but it's man. Okay? And this is when Hellenism came to rise. And 100 years before Chanukah's story, actually, Alexander the Great got to Jerusalem and he started spreading these words. So you can imagine 100 years of spreading these ideas, slowly, it starts to trickle into the Jewish community. Okay? And then the Jewish community itself became divided. Who's believing in God and who's believing in man? Like, who got to your parking space or your camel parking space? Was it God or did you find it yourself? Okay, and in other classes we've looked at this month about miracles, we've looked at this idea of that not just the open miracles are miracles, but absolutely everything is a miracle. The fact that you're sitting in your seat and breathing through your nose and seeing with your eyes and hearing with your ears, all of that is miracles as well. Okay, so which is actually why we light last night's candle was not the miracle. It was just the fact that day one they lit the oil and the oil lasted. So Chanukah, really, the lighting of candles should start on day 2. So why are we lighting on day 1? Because the fact that oil lights is also a miracle, which we can take into everything in our lives. The fact that we can do anything is a miracle. Okay, so this is the sensitivity around which Chanukah brings us as well. So the Jews started reading all this literature and they also started worshipping man. Okay, and when you worship man, you don't have so much space for God, and they became divided among them and there was fighting. Then Antiochus came and he tried to get rid of all religion. And what he said, there'll be no Torah learning, no Brit Milah, and everyone has to just be like the Greeks and worship man. Okay, and we know that the Greeks had their Olympic Games and all the gladiators, the Romans, they all had, everything was about this magnificent masculine and human body. Okay, so what happens is the Jews who didn't want to give up Judaism, they fled and they went to the caves and they hid in the caves and they came out at night time. But obviously, this always happens, it's like history repeating itself. There was one Jew who was a Hellenist who went and told on them, and they came, the Greeks, and they smoked them out of the caves. And then they said they had to sacrifice a pig on the altar in the temple, and they didn't want to. Okay, and there was this big fight started, and a Greek, do you all know the story? Okay, so there was a Greek soldier who got killed in this process. And then that was like, now scary, what's going to be, right? The same like Egyptian soldier got killed, right? History always repeats itself. So this Greek soldier got killed, and then Matityahu rises up and he says his famous words, Mi kamocha ba'elim Hashem. Who is for me and who is for God? Let's stand up. It's our time to fight now. He was just a Kohen Gadol. He was the Gabbai in the shul, right? What did he know about fighting this big Greek army? But he said, we can't lose our spirituality. We can't lose our faith, because if we don't have Brit Milah and we don't have the Torah, we're just human beings. We'll lose everything. It was different to Purim, and it was different to the Nazis. The Nazis says no Jews, but here what they were saying is no Judaism, right? So there was a difference. And he said, we will fight, just like Mordechai and Levitch, we will go down fighting, right? We will fight for Judaism, and we'll fight to be Jews. We're not just going to be killed here. So he said this powerful thing, who is with me? And then a few of the Jews came with him, but it wasn't like all the Jews ganged up against the Greek army. And for those of you who read today, in the Amidah, we add in a little verse every day on Chanukah. Okay, Hashem delivered the mighty army into the hands of the weak, right? We were just the Kohanim. We were the ones who did the sacrifices in the shul. These were the ones in the temple. These are the ones who stood up and fought. Okay, so it's not like they were out anyway protecting the nation. They weren't the army. They were the holy ones in the temple, but they stood up. So already it's showing us that the reality of the situation was, who do you think you are? You're not going to win, like imposter syndrome. What do you mean? You work in the temple. You're not going to beat this Greek army. But that's exactly what Chanukah is all about, which is why we got the miracle, right? Because we defied reality. Okay, the reality was, who do we think we are? How can you stand up to this mighty nation? Same like, who do you think you are? You've just come out of the gas chambers and the concentration camps. You think you can build a nation? You think you can get your own land? But the mentality of Jewish thinking is, we don't go by what reality shows us. We go by God. Okay? If we put our faith in God, then God can help us and save us. And as we've said in all my classes, that there's an energy. Time moves like this in a spiral. This is what Rabbi Tatz says. Time moves in a spiral. Every year we're just 1 year older, but we're still in that energy. So as we move around now to Chanukah again, there's an energy here of reality isn't as we see things, but reality is as, can we get into that space of that God thinking to be able to bring about miracles, okay? Because when you're in that flow, it's different to what's just going on over here. All right, so that was his idea. So there is this researcher, Harvard professor, his name is Robert Rosenthal, and he did this fake blooming intelligence test on a class of children, where he told the teachers that this is high IQ kids, right? Go teach them. And they weren't. They were just average children. What happened is these children started to thrive, because the reality of what the teacher saw, he had heard, okay, these are geniuses, let's teach them as if they're geniuses. And what happened? They bloomed into geniuses, right? So that is not the reality of what the Greeks see. The Greeks see this body, here I am, and I will fight for myself and I will defend myself. But the Jews see something different, that God creates the reality. And can we go into that frame of mind and that space? Okay. So his belief, this teacher's belief in these children, propelled them to achieve something greater. Now imagine if we did that for ourselves and for our children and for our families, and even for things like healing. Okay, because this time of the year, right, that little vial of oil that was hidden, okay, which had the potential to bring about a miracle, because it's in this energy space of Chanukah, it's in all of us, right? I'm also focusing deeply on this. I'm trying to recover from an injury, okay? There is something in us, that little bit of oil, if it was hidden, it's hidden in us too, and this is a time to ignite it, right? To really boost healing on any form in the body as well. Okay, that's what's taking place now. All right. So to be a Jew is to never think that what we see is the reality and that's just what it is. Okay, incredible things have happened in our history, even the 6-Day War, okay, and many other examples, to know that we don't run by the rules of man and reality. We run by the rules of Hashem. And Chanukah coming now again to say to us, don't get caught by man thinking. Channel yourselves into God thinking, okay? They had that courage to stand up, and so should we. So the Greeks' reality is get real, right? Be real, right? And the Jewish reality is we bring God in because anything is possible with God. Even when God said to Abraham, you're going to have a son, Abraham said, listen, I'm close on 100 here. How's that possible? I've seen in the stars, it's not possible. And then it says, and God took him beyond the stars. Because God isn't limited by stars. Like if we think we read astrological stuff or we read things and doctors tell us stuff, well, that doesn't mean that has to be. We don't put our faith in man, we put our faith in God. And God can take us beyond the stars. And this is what happened. This Matityahu who stood up and said, who's with me? Let's go fight. You know, those who came along, what happened in the end? We know that they were victorious. So they didn't go by what should be. What should be, they would get their butts whipped, right? They were going to get beaten and gone is Judaism. But they went by what could be. Okay, so sometimes there's a should be kind of thinking, but we want to, at this time of Chanukah, start moving into the could be. What could be? Okay, and that's where we're at now. And actually, Chanukah falls at this time of the winter solstice. Okay, for those of you who've done my classes, know that nighttime, darkness is heavy times in our history, in our personal lives. It was a dark time in our life. We even use that terminology, and this is where we have the longest night. But Chanukah falls smack bang at the winter solstice, right? And we're going to see that a little bit later with Adam and the beautiful Midrash, that this is when the dark, long, long night starts turning, okay? No one lives, everyone has tzoros and challenges, but no one lives in darkness forever, okay? And that's why Chanukah comes in this time. You're going through a dark period, but it's not going to last forever. Even with our own personal challenges, it's not going to last forever. Can you go beyond the stars? Can you go beyond what man or doctors or your boss has told you is achievable? And can you push yourself even further? Because God's in that space. That's where God is. Okay. All right. So we actually are not here to live our lives through Greek glasses. We are here to look at our lives as something bigger. And as Jews, we have the ability to do that. Okay, so there was this quote in one of the Israeli newspapers a couple of years back where this young boy asks his father, and he says, were the Maccabees religious? His father says, yes. And the boy says, did they keep Shabbos? And his father says, yes. And he says, did they keep the Torah and mitzvot? And his father says, yes. So the son says, do we keep Shabbos? And the father says, no. He says, do we keep Torah and mitzvot? And the father says, no. So the son then says, empathically, asks if the war between the Greeks and the Romans were taking, and the Greeks and the Maccabees were taking place today, which side would we be on? Okay, it's very sad. Okay, but actually Chanukah is the biggest holiday celebrated, maybe because it falls in line with Christmas. It's the biggest holiday celebrated in the world, and it's Jews of all denominations are celebrating Chanukah. So what's the attraction? Because what it's about is the religious Jews who said, no, we will not give up our Torah, we will not give up our Brit Milah, and we will stay faithful to Hashem. That's what we're fighting for. That's what the holiday is about. Okay, and here everyone is celebrating Chanukah without actually knowing what that deeper meaning is. So where do we find ourselves in that spectrum? Okay, and how are we also holding on to all of that? Because the Greeks and the Romans, they had these gladiators and all these. If you've been to Rome and you saw all at the Colosseum there, everything that went on there was actually sick. You know, but now what do? We're not having these live fight suckers, but everything's on our TV still. All these gladiators and all this violence and all the superheroes. It's all man, I will save, Superman will save you. You know, all of these things. There's like, where is God even today? And the irony actually, which is quite funny, which I found this idea, is that this Greek culture was all about this beautifying the human body. And then what is the Israelis do? We make the Maccabi games, right? Which is quite ironic because here they are. The Maccabees were the ones who were saying, no, we are defying the human body and we are going with God. And those are the names that are used for the sporty games in the country. Anyway, it's a play on, it's quite funny. So there is now just looking at just the body. We can't just look at the vessel because the only reason we have a body is for our souls to walk around in this earth. That is why we have this beautiful temple of ours, to walk around here, to be able to perform the mitzvot and to connect to God on a higher level. But the vessel is also important, okay, but we can't lose the plot of why we have the vessel. So there's this beautiful story from the Talmud. There's a princess asks the Roman emperor, a princess from the Roman emperor asks Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hanania, okay? And he was actually a very ugly man, but he was incredibly wise. And she says to him, how is it possible that so much wisdom can be stored in such an ugly vessel? That's what she asked him. And he said to her, where does your king keep his wine? So she said he keeps them in bottles and wooden glass bottles and wooden vats. She said, but those are so ugly. You'd think if you wanted to keep wine and respect wine, you would put it in the gold vessels. So she said, you're right. So she went and she took the whole winery from the king, all his beautiful wines, and she changed them into golden bottles. And I don't know the chemicals of how this works, but wine, gold sours, metal sours, wine. So all the wine went off. Okay, so let's look at source number 1. Okay, this is a commentary from Rabbi Chaviv Danesh. He says, when the vessel is more valuable than that which it is supposed to hold, then the vessel ruins what it is supposed to ultimately protect. It is important to note that Judaism is not against physicality. In fact, the reason that we mark the beginning of our holidays by drinking wine is that it's in a mix of physicality and spirituality. The essence of having holidays is to lift our physical activities to the level of the spiritual. A person's spiritual level gets better with wine if he or she works on his or herself. However, all physical things get worse with time, okay? The only exception is wine, which gets better with time, thus symbolizing the mixture of the physical and the spiritual. That's why we use wine. It gets better and better with time. Wine is unique in that it can only be kept in glass bottles. Glass is inherently a vessel that reveals its contents. Isn't that beautiful? Therefore, we too should only immerse ourselves in physicality to the point where spirituality is visible. Beyond that physicality is like the vessel which ruins the content itself. So it's a beautiful idea, okay? So we're not going the route of the Greeks of just this body is magnificent. How can I pleasure my body? How can I look up my body? What more beautiful things can I buy for this body? But it actually has to have a deeper meaning. Like we want to be a glass bottle, right? We want to be able to walk around in this place where our neshama is given the chance to shine and thrive. Okay, so on Chanukah, actually, we light 36 candles, not the shamash, but all the candles over all the night add up to 36. So in the beginning, when Hashem created the world on the first day, he said, let there be light. And we know that this wasn't light as we know it because the sun was only created on the 4th day. So let there be light was something else. It was like a spiritual glow, a magnificent brightness that came into the world before light itself came. So there was something spiritual and something holy, okay? It was a supernal light, okay, which Adam lost after he sinned. So Adam sinned, and then that light disappeared, and he was kicked out of Gan Eden. Okay, they actually said that Adam himself shone with this bright light, and after he sinned, he asked for clothing because that holiness was shone out of him, which our nails are meant to represent on some deeper Kabbalistic level. Why we have nails is a reminder of Adam. It was his container that contained his light, was his nails. He was covered in nails. And he sinned before Shabbat. It was obviously something beautiful. We can't imagine it. We don't look at our nails and say, oh, that's gross. But it looks, something of beauty for us. But it was something which contained his spiritual light. But he lost that when he sinned. Okay. And he sinned before Shabbat. Then it had the 12 hours on Friday and 24 hours on Shabbat, which makes up 36 hours. This light continued to shine, to be present, and then it was shut off from the world. Okay. And then he was also kicked out of the garden. So this light remained till the end of Shabbat. And what we do is straight after Shabbat, we light a candle to signify for Havdalah, and we shine on our nails. Yeah. So to signify that we are trying to rectify the light which was lost to the world. We are trying to say we want to bring it back. And not only is that light only available for us on Shabbat, but we want to actually bring that energy from Shabbat into the week as well. So that's what we want to be doing. Okay, so so light is closeness to Hashem, and when we see things more clearly, that is what light represents. And darkness is the lack of closeness to Hashem. So what is happening now, as we said, this is the darkest time of the year, and what are we trying to bring into this dark time? Hashem. Okay, we're trying to bring God into our world. Really, in the dark time, we're trying to bring Hashem in. So as we light each candle, if we have in our mind, we're connecting to that original spiritual light. How beautiful, because our souls recognize that as well. So there are actually 3 themes on Chanukah, and most people only know 2 of these themes. Okay, so what's the first theme? We've already spoken about both of them. Okay, so the first theme is?
Being about not being man-centered, but God-centered.
Okay, so that's not big. That is what it's about. The Begadol, the story. So the first thing is the miracle. Well, that's actually the second thing is the miracle. Okay, that the oil lasted. The first thing was the military victory. That's the first thing. Okay, so here's the third thing, which not many people know. So if you look in source number 2, okay, this is in the Gemara Avodah Zarah 8a. Our rabbis taught when the first man, who is Adam, saw the daylight hours were becoming shorter and shorter, right? So Adam was kicked out of Gan Eden, and near winter time, right? He was created on Rosh Hashanah, right? The world was started being created on 25th of Elul. Adam was created on Rosh Hashanah, which is September, October. What's happening then? The days are getting shorter and shorter, slowly and slowly. Okay, so when he was first, a man saw the daylight hours were becoming shorter and shorter, and he said, "Woe is me! Perhaps because I've sinned, the world is becoming dark around me and is returning to chaos. This is the death sentence declared upon me by heaven." He sat for 8 days in fasting and prayer, and after the winter solstice, when he saw the days becoming longer and longer, he said, "This is simply the way of the world." He went and he made an 8-day festival. Okay, so Adam himself, in that first year, the energy exactly around the winter solstice, there's something about 8 days. He saw, the world isn't being destroyed. We're not going into darkness, and then I will disappear. But actually, this is the way of the world. And he thanked Hashem for that kindness. Okay?
Why 8 days? Why Dafka 8-day festival?
So 7 days, of the seven is the physical, and 8 is always the spiritual. We have, which actually connects beautifully to Chanukah. 8 is Brit Milah, is the 7 days. On the 8th day is the spiritual. Physical is 7, 8 goes to spiritual, and Chanukah was also 8 days. 8 was obviously a big energy at that time. Like we said, the time moving around. The time of Chanukah is 8 days. So he saw time was moving. I don't know if he knew then that there were 7, he must have known 7 days of the week. And the 8th day, it was clear to him, this is getting better and better. And he said 8 days to go into that. Okay? So our job is to reveal Hashem into the world, to actually bring this light back into the world, okay? This is the third thing, what Adam did. He actually saw that the time was getting darker and darker, that there was an energy around this time, and this is what we're celebrating, that light which was lost. Okay, so we are connecting that also. We are now, how we correct it is we bring light every night. And not only do we bring light, but we bring increasing light each day. It gets bigger and bigger, the light that we're bringing into the world. But it can't just be, I'm lighting my candles. It can't just be the physical side of it, because that's where the Greeks come in. It has to be, how am I physically manifesting that spirituality in the world? It can't be, I light my candles, I eat my donuts, I have my latkes, I spin the dreidel.
Not enough.
It's not enough.
Have another sufgan, yeah.
Have another one. But then you have to take it deeper. You have to take it deeper. Okay. So the darker it is, the more precious a candle is. Okay, so we're really getting to the 21st of December is the solstice. We're getting to that place. And the Gemara says, what good is a candle at noon?
We passed it.
Yeah.
What's the date?
23rd.
23rd. We've passed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's at, thank you. We're actually at it, right? This is the cusp where everything's started to get better now. Okay, so we need to, when we light our candles, be in this space of going with the flow, being carried with the energy of what Chanukah is offering us. Okay, so the Gemara says, what good is a candle at noon? Okay, it's nice, but it's not the same as a candle in the dark. Okay, so we are here to try our best to bring light back into the world. Okay, source number 3, just on finishing off this from Adam, David Hoffman from JTS. I found something beautiful that he wrote. He says, Chanukah has, in its distant past, right, which is starting from Adam Harishon, the most universal of messages. It is a holiday about experiencing fear, vulnerability, which connects to also the war against the Greeks, that vulnerability, and darkness, but not being consumed by it. It's a holiday that reminds us that light and security will return again, as sure as we know darkness will return. These are the cycles of life. The challenge is remembering that the darkness will in fact retreat. So this too, like the story of the oil, is a story of profound faith. So the story of all these 3 things combined, the first with Adam, how he recognized the light was taken away when he was kicked out of Gan Eden, but then when he saw, well, light in itself is disappearing, and then it wasn't, so he thanked for that, and also saw how he can bring his own light into the world, and then the military victory, and then the oil. Okay, so connecting to that little oil in us that we want to each ignite within ourselves as well. All right. So there is this beautiful idea as well. If you before, the Vilna Gaon says that the word nefesh, okay, which is the part of the soul that connects the physical to the spiritual, has the acronym of Nun Pei Shin, which is ner, light, patil, wick, and shemen, which is oil. So how are we now going to connect this, our nefesh, to what's going on at Chanukah time? So what is the connection between the human soul and Chanukah? Okay, so this big question, we have to go and look in the Torah. Where do we see a kind of a miracle where, so the miracle of Chanukah is oil was lit, but the oil wasn't consumed, right? So where do we see something that was not consumed in the Torah? Went defied the burning bush, right? The tree was lit, but it wasn't burnt. Okay, so this is Moshe Rabbeinu's experience. So Chanukah, the oil lasted 8 days, and the wick did not get consumed. So there's a connection between the two here. So in your source number 5, Rabbi Chaviv Danish continues. He says, the connection between the human soul and Chanukah lights is as follows. Oil, in Kabbalistic terms, always refers to wisdom of Torah. That's a deep reason why we say Mashiach will be anointed with oil. And in fact, Mashiach literally means anoint with oil. Okay? And light refers to Hashem's revelation in the world, while the wick represents the human being. The wick draws up the oil, and through it keeps the flame on. Okay, we can't use, it's halachically, you can't use little torches or those LED, those little candles. You can't use those. It has to be a flame. And actually, if you can use olive oil, that is the best thing to do. The wick cannot last without the oil. And without the oil, there would be no light. Similarly, the human being must draw up the oil, which is Torah wisdom, and use it to keep the fire, which is Hashem's revelation in the world. Okay? So the lights of Chanukah are coming to teach us their lesson. Don't give up. Okay, you might be in a dark time in your own life, in our national life. Things might be, as a nation, things might be difficult, but it's going to turn around. And the beautiful thing about the flame also, the flame is the only thing that defies gravity. It's the only thing that goes up. Flame always goes up. Okay, and that is also something we connect to. We didn't give up. Flames always go up, and we need to connect to that. Okay, that there is such a thing that can defy gravity. Okay, and there is such a thing that can defy the human. It's Hashem, and that's what we are connecting to now in this time. So the Jews didn't give up, and they fought for their spiritual existence, and that's what our neshama, our nefesh, is trying to do deep within us. So as we light the Chanukah candles, to bring that energy in as well. So there is also a Kabbalistic idea from Rabbi Moshe Luria that the 613 mitzvot correspond to all the different parts of the body. There's a different mitzvah for each different parts. The organs, the vessels, the nerves, everything has a different mitzvah connected to it. Okay? And each different mitzvah can bring about different healings in the body. All right? So there's a beautiful book written by Simcha Ben Yosef. The book is called Empowered to Heal. And about the Chanukah candles, it's written in there that it is not one of the 613 mitzvot. Okay?
Empowered to Heal?
Sorry?
In the book, Empowered to Heal?
Empowered to Heal. By Simcha. Empowered. You're empowered to heal. It's my accent. But it is a mitzvah that is very precious to the Jewish people. Okay? Because there's not many things, mitzvot, that we do. There's only a few mitzvot that we do where our whole body gets affected. One is mikvah. Who knows something else? Sukkah. Okay, mikvah. And walking in Eretz Israel. Doing that all the time. Okay? So those are things we do with our body. But when we stand in front of the candles, it's a wash. Our whole body gets affected. So taking that idea of the oil, which we have hidden in ourselves for healing, God saved that oil to be found, right? He made sure the oil would be found, okay? And then he brought about the miracle afterwards through the oil. We all have that in us, that healing. And when we stand in front of the candles, just let it wash over us and bring that healing out, ignite our own inner healing to come out as well. So that's what we do in front of the candles. Okay, the time also when we light the Chanukah candles is as night starts, right? So if we've said night is challenge, as the challenge starts, we light a candle, okay? And that is our response. Okay, Hashem, whatever your plan is for me, I'm going through this challenge right now, but I'm doing it with a candle. I'm not sitting back and just saying, well, see how you can take my body down. I'm going to fight this. I have my own oil in me. I will light it. Help me. Wash over me with your light. I'm connecting to all of that, and we're going through our challenge. Nighttime is starting, but I'm gearing up, and I've got candles. And that's the attitude with when we light the candles. Like, this won't take me down. I will be in my challenge if this is what you've decided I need right now, but I'm bringing candles. Okay, and that's the attitude that we do. Okay, so often we can't remove the pain, but we can light a candle. Okay, and you all know, like when you're in the dark, like sometimes I remember there was this one poem that we learned in Afrikaans in South Africa for matric, which was about this man driving on this dark road without any lights, and where he was going, and he was scared and he couldn't see anything, and all of a sudden the lightning came, and he knew exactly where he was, and then it was dark again, but everything had settled for him. Because the light can bring that for us. So let's connect to that. We might be going through challenges on different levels, struggles, difficulties, but the light is here in a big way on Chanukah. And each day it's getting bigger and bigger. Okay, so just use it for yourself as well. Gear up, right? Like suit up. Stand there and just get that armor coming towards you.
We hear the poem.
Can
you still recite the poem?
Can we recite the
poem?
poem?
Can you still recite the poem that you learned? You said you learned a poem about this. Did I not?
My Afrikaans has been replaced by Hebrew. But it was like there was a deer in the light, and maybe there was a bubble of this and a bubble of that, and it was very, I can't recite it. But I remembered the message. The message was clear, that light brings clarity. And sometimes at night time we don't have light, but there could be lightning. We can light our own candles. We don't have to be taken down by our struggles and our challenges. We can light our own candles, okay? And through Chanukah, we're connecting to all of that, okay? So kindling the Chanukah candles is a beautiful mitzvah, and it's a highlight. We all love it. I mean, we've got a picture on our fridge taken, I don't know, maybe 18 or 16 years ago on holiday. All my husband sitting with all the little kids all lighting their Chanukah. It's so cute, and it's on my fridge still to this day. Just beautiful. So there's families get together. It's a beautiful, beautiful time of this energy of healing. It's a healing energy and a beautiful energy, and let's bring that together, okay? Even like last time, I was like, Emma, we're all lighting together, and one had to go there, and mom was going there, and I was like, come on, quickly, we're all doing this together, because one also as a family, like, embrace that light together, just like wash over us, bring the healing, even into the family.
The children all have time. It's really sad, just the children. We FaceTimed my daughter.
Oh, beautiful.
She was driving.
And she what? That's beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so we're adding, every night we're adding to the light as well. So let's look at source number 6. He's saying that, Rabbi Garari is saying that it like feels a bit empty. We start just one candle, and this whole empty Chanukiah, right? He said just light one candle. Then the next time, bring 2 together. Don't make it like look at all this emptiness, but all the empty holes that are waiting to be filled are also playing a role. Okay, so this is what he says in source number 6. All right. He says the menorah brings together 2 perspectives: the focus on the present and the aspirations for the future. Spiritual growth, whether spiritual, intellectual, or emotional, must always combine 2 very different approaches. The ultimate goal is drastic change, but it has to be accomplished by taking one step at a time. On the one hand, we should always appreciate the infinite potential of our soul and the unlimited capacity to grow into something completely different than we are right now. True growth is not just a small token improvement, but rather a fundamental drastic change in mindset, attitude, and emotional responses. On the other hand, we cannot implement this change in one go. While the ultimate goal is drastic change, it has to be accomplished by taking one step at a time. So we can't just get to Chanukah and we're on the 8th day. It's a process. I light one candle. I soften the hardness in me to my challenges around me. Then the next night, I light a second candle. There's more light. That can now come in a little bit more. And the 3rd day, there's even more light. So it's getting better and better and bigger to help us get to where we want to go. So if we use that also for our personal growth and our spiritual growth, we can't just decide, oh, tomorrow I'm going to be up here. Like it is, light, and step by step. If you want it to be meaningful, you have to see, yeah, there's a process and I'm in it. And Chanukah comes to teach us as well. We're building on that. And the light is just here to walk with us, to give us that inspiration that we get to. Okay, so the story of the oil lasting 8 days relates to the miracle and how we interpret it, and each one of us has our own meaning, how we also interpret our own difficulties and our own struggles and our challenges. But what the main message is, and this is what was different to the 6-day war. So the 6-day war, not everyone, but a lot of people say was miraculous. Even in West Point, they don't even study it because it can't be studied. It's not logical. Okay?
It's the War of Independence.
Huh?
That's the War of Independence they don't study.
The War of Independence.
No, the 6-day war can be explained. The War of Independence can't.
Yeah. I thought it was 6, but the 6-day war has these miraculous things that happen.
But it was actually won in the first few hours by the Air Force, by wiping out the Air Force. Yeah.
But actually, even the steps, I've had a lecture on it, even the steps that went up to that. The night before, they changed the codes for, the Egyptian got warned from, I can't remember where, Egyptians got their warnings of any airstrikes, whatever, but once a week the codes were changed. And the night before, they had some party and the guy was late in getting to work that morning. And he hadn't had time to read the new codes, so he didn't see the message that said, the planes are coming. So it was his actual fault. But that's miraculous, like if we want to look at that, okay? Or it's not. You know, depends where we're holding. We said in one of our classes on Kislev, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we said Einstein says there's two ways of looking at the world. One is as if everything is miraculous, and the other is as if nothing's miraculous. So like we can choose where we want to be on that spectrum. So the idea here is that, so if it was the War of Independence, they don't study, our wars are miraculous. Hashem comes in. But actually, the war on Chanukah, Hashem took it to another level, because after that, the oil lasted, right? So it's not just, actually, the big deal about Chanukah is the military victory. It's not what the oil lasted, okay? That's the out of nature miracle. But the fact that the sun woke up this morning for us to see is also a miracle. But we're not in tune to that because Magi'a Li, the sunrise today.
They say that nature is just the frequency of miracles.
Right.
Because it happens every
Right.
day again.
And we said this also 2 weeks ago. The word nature is Teva, and it is Hashem who likboa, he hides himself in nature. God works through nature. So if we can be sensitive, then everything is miracle. Everything we see around us is just God expressing himself. Okay, the fact that there's laws around it are because it has to be sustained for the world to work. But God works through nature. So the fact that at Chanukah time we got this miracle revealed to us afterwards. Okay, the war itself was already the miracle, but then there's always going to be people afterwards who says, no, it wasn't really, and no, he didn't get the codes, and that was just coincidence. But there are always going to be people who say that. Okay, so then just to ensure that that doesn't happen, the oil took place. Okay, on top of that. And what do we learn from that? That sometimes we do feel like we're in the dark, and we are alone, and God might not be with us, and we feel that. But the oil comes to say, you're actually never alone. Because in everything in your life, even the hardships, I'm there with you. And so that is what this oil represents, is that God is there and God is holding us through our difficult times if we will tap into that energy. So when we stand in front of our candles, tonight is candle number 2, just to take that more of that, that light over us, let it wash over us, let us help us with our struggles and our difficulties. And just as we are lighting candles physically, we have a spiritual candle to light internally to help us with any ailments, physical, spiritual, emotional, that we want to overcome, challenges to help us light from the inside. There's light on the outside. It washes over us everywhere. It's something to enjoy and nurture within us. And it is actually the miracle of the oil is a testimony that God is with us. Like, it shouldn't be doubted at this time. We might not have the clarity. There was some rabbi who said, if we could understand God from a human perspective, God would have a human mind, right? And then why would you want to worship that, right? So we don't understand God because he's not us. He's bigger than us. He's greater than us. And to go from this attitude of, if I'm in this right now, there has to be a reason. I'm moving with it, but I'm going to shed my own light on it. I'm not just going to be the body who takes, this is where it begins and ends. We have something bigger that we can connect to. So a Jew's belief shapes his reality, while the Greek's reality shapes his belief, right? And we're not going the Greek way, okay? We're not going by just, this is what's the reality in my life, okay? Sometimes when I work with patients and they can say, doctor has told me there's a 10% chance of this being successful. I'm saying, great, we're in the 10%. Like, if there's a 10% chance, like, why won't you choose to be there? Okay, like, let's go into that space, right? I only had one patient ever who came back to me and said to me, the doctor told me there's 100% chance this will not work. So I was like, who does he think he is? Like, really? That's almost like, I don't know which program this is from. My kids always do this. Challenge accepted. It's from one of the TV programs. We had when we got married, we got this wooden challah board, and with a knife that like slides into the board. And back in South Africa, where I had someone washing my challah board for me, on the first time we used it, it was put in backwards, forced in, right? Never came out again. Okay? So my kids had friends, I don't know, it was like 2 years ago. we still use the challah board, right, but with a different knife. And there's this one kid a guy was visiting one of my children, and he's like, my kid said, oh, that doesn't come out, because he wanted to cut something. So he says, challenge accepted. And it was like, the sword and the stone, and he went and it just took it out, because in his mind it was like, don't tell me this isn't going to come out. It went in, it can come out. So if our belief is, it was actually a really funny story, like everyone just started screaming, because like 25 years it's been stuck in the board. Now we use that knife as well, and it's a very sharp knife. So our belief shapes our reality. That's what Chanukah is about. What you believe is going to be what you're going to see in your life. But if you are Greek, what you see is what you believe, right? So, and also there's this thing, seeing is believing, but I can't see Wi-Fi, but I know it works. Like there's so much that we can't see. Don't get caught by, this is the reality, this is what I have to go with. Chanukah comes to teach us there's so much more.
So the one thing, like seeing things, nature and how things work. I'm reading this book. It's a sequel to the Tattooist of Auschwitz. It's called Silke's Journey, and she's in a camp in Russia, and it's the White Nights now, and how torturous it is for them. There's no dark, and they actually make blindfolds from their sheets because they can't sleep. And they go crazy because they can't sleep, because there's nothing to cover the windows, because it's actually the opposite, because there's no darkness at all, only light, and it's making them go crazy.
So your point is magnificent, okay, and this is what actual suffering is all about. Suffering is all about this. If we lived in a world of chocolate every day, or holiday every day, or simchas every day, what would they be? Ordinary. Everything has an opposite. Everything, light and dark, good and evil, happy and sad, hot and cold, winter, summer, everything has an opposite. And as you're saying, if there was too much light, that also is unbearable. Okay, and we know also too much dark. Natan Sharansky speaks about the darkness in solitary confinement. How that was worse than not seeing people, but the darkness. That your point is beautiful. Too much is also no good. Too much of a good thing, and it's not that we're waiting for the shoe to drop or, to get me out of my goodness, it has to end at some point. No, we live in our present, okay, and we make good with whatever we've got. We try and elevate into something good will come from this. How can I grow through this challenge? What resources can I find within myself to get through this right now? And that's what we are tapping into when we are in challenge. And when we are in good times, we are building then on my blessings. Notice my blessings. I feel today maybe one part of your body is not working so well today, but the 40,000 other things that are working, spend a few minutes there, bring that energy to what's not working, and see what kind of effect you can have in you. So that's a beautiful, beautiful point to end with. Okay, Chanukah Sameach.